This week for Cart 455. I look at the industry of culture, from artistic concept to manufacturing creativity. Where does the artist's hand rest when products are manufactured by the millions? When beginning considering artists as CEOs of their ideas and inventions, I immediately thought of Andy Warhol. In the 1960s, this famous pop culture icon marked the decade in more ways than one. Warhol's fascination for the design of consumer products strongly influenced his artistic style. This eccentric figure noted how radically innovative it was for products to simultaneously become adopted by high-class society and your average Joe. From Hollywood stars to stay-at-home moms, from the President of the USA to a pauper on the street. Warhol's art focuses on the ability of marketing design to create vastly adoptable brands. While coming close to becoming a satire of American culture, Warhol's mirrors bring about consciousness of a virtually invisible phenomenon. This business art, as Warhol puts it, brings to the front an important argument for the role of artistic critique. Art, whether present in a traditional frame or through consumer products, is a point around which society may inspect itself and provide feedback. Traditionally, we may have found some conversations at galleries or the theater. Who's to say these aren't happening through consumers selecting products they can relate to? Connected everywhere, will we lose culture or strengthen it? Situated in one of America's culture hubs, The Factory produced sought-after art as efficiently as the factories of the Industrial Revolution. A concept of Andy Warhol, this art fabrication plant demonstrated the collective nature of creativity. At this point in history, the advent of mass communications media loomed like a dark cloud over small-town America as well as throughout countries of the world. Many experts worried about the fate of culture. Thanks to their vast penetration, it was believed that a national news broadcast could have the power to destroy a regional accent.
Every weeknight begins with responsible, penetrating coverage of today's vital issues. ABC News.
Reynolds in New York. This was the look of the land.
Good evening from ABC News headquarters in Washington. I'm Howard K. Smith.
This is John Skelly at the State Department. Secretary of State Rogers. We have ignition.
Canadians often repeated that the radio stations played too many American tunes, or there were too many American shows on TV. We all became Americanized, or so it seemed. The fact is, our society puts up a good fight against becoming what McLuhan called homogenized Dagwoods. Instead of placing efforts in fitting in, results of recent studies demonstrate that, for instance, a small country is not overwhelmed by foreign music and art, but instead has a strong bias towards its local talent. The GDP of a given country actually closely matches its share of locally created works. While these studies focus on the music industry, it would be interesting to see similar findings in the realm of consumer products. Let us take Quebec products and culture as a more extreme Canadian example. Advertisers make substantial efforts to promote their product as locally relevant. Terms like geopertinence fly about to simply mean that a given product or service is culturally relevant. Their efforts make the cultural familiarity almost palpable, sometimes using the French language as a ploy or changing the word Canadian to an expression like from here. Instead of putting efforts in molding the users to the product, these companies rely on the talent of locals to provide the consumers with a warm and fuzzy feeling they hopefully will recognize. To answer the questions I began with, the artist, as always, is in touch with the inner workings of society. Ever watchful, they provide the magic mirror where our flaws and talents can be observed and deliberated about. Without individuality and creativity, the human aspect of life would be lost, as would any possible profit. I would venture that although millions of dollars are at stake, the true artist's hand is never forced, and it is through personal beliefs and convictions that work the true artists. Thank you for listening in on these weekly video logs. I hope you found my posts informative and maybe even insightful. This brings the main part of Cart 455 to a close. I'm Emmanuel Lalande signing off.